Meet Serena, your virtual companion for emotional support. The ultimate safe space to discuss your thoughts, your fears, and the ups and downs of daily life. Start your free trial today at serena.chat.
I, 33 female, think my husband, 36 male, is losing his mind. Edit. Thanks everyone for the advice. Just to clear some things up, my husband does see doctors. 3. A neurologist, an epidemiologist and an MD. He also sees a therapist. They, doctors, have all advised us it's a comorbidity of epilepsy, but I'm not convinced. Thank you for validating me and my desire to see a psychiatrist. I'm very in tune with my husband. I can tell when he's off immediately. This post was written in a time when I felt he is off. I was right in my thoughts. He is off and is now headed to a mental health facility for further evaluation. Hopefully, they are able to give us more answers. My child is safe with her grandparents. I arranged this as soon as I noticed he felt off. I've received one comment about our decision to have a child. We sought medical advice before our decision to have a child. He was also in 2 5-day brain studies for his condition. I know we trust doctors and their opinions, but they can be wrong. I now understand, as they are just human too. Thanks for those of you who have offered support and understanding. It has truly helped me to feel less alone in a scary time. My husband and I have been together for 10 years, married for 4. I began our relationship knowing he has epilepsy. Over the years we've discovered his epilepsy is medication resistant and he'll likely have seizures for the rest of his life. I knew this and I was prepared to live our lives like this. Shortly after Wednesday, 2018, my husband had an unusual episode. At this time I thought it was an odd type of seizure. He was completely coherent, something he is definitely not when he has a seizure. He could answer questions like who's the president? When's my birthday? What's your name? None of these are questions he can answer while having a seizure or in the postictal state afterwards. He just kept laughing and asking if he was dreaming. It was weird, but I didn't think much of it. I honestly thought he had drank or smoked too much and moved on. Fast forward almost exactly 1 year later, 2019, he has a similar episode. This time not as tame. He can still answer the questions, but this time his emotions are all over the place. He's laughing one moment then crying hysterically the next. There is even a moment when he stares at me blankly, like he doesn't even know who I am. It gives me the chills. I don't feel safe, so I call his parents. They come over and he continues having mood swings with them there. Eventually he calms down and the next day he returns to normal. He describes feeling out of his body and it being a weird feeling of disconnection. We talk to his neurologist. They adjust his meds. The doctor thinks it may be postictal psychosis. It's not extremely rare in those with epilepsy. But a simple medication adjustment could help its intensity. Fast forward to the next year, 2020. We've moved. His seizures have basically stopped on a new medication. A huge improvement for us. We've moved cross-country. This particular day was great. We are planning our wedding anniversary. We feel so in love and happy. It was a really good day, so in hindsight I probably missed the extremes in his behavior. He's laughing harder than usual. He's being extremely affectionate. He's usually affectionate but not quite like this. We're walking to dinner when suddenly, he's looking around nervously. He's talking to himself under his breath. I ask him if he took something? Maybe he took drugs? He doesn't do drugs. But I am just trying to make sense of his behavior at that moment. He's shaking. He seems terrified. I turn us around to go home. Suddenly he running. On the sidewalk. Off the sidewalk. I'm terrified he's going to get hit by a car. I catch up to him and grab his arm to slow him. He turns around. His face doesn't register he knows me at all. He hits me across the face. I am stunned. He has never, ever and would never, ever hit me. I run after him. We make it right outside of our apartment building. He is screaming now. He's completely gone. He's hitting street posts. He's hitting flower beds. I try to pull him again. He turns to hit me. People see and they come to my aid. He starts attacking them. He's screaming nonsensically. He's not even using real words. I call the emergency line. It takes 3 men to hold him down. They sedate him. He sleeps for 3 hours. When he comes to, he doesn't remember anything. Only his hallucinations. Men coming to get him. Lamp posts turned into giant arms trying to constrain him. I am devastated. His neurologist changes his medication again. Maybe it's a side effect? Fast forward to the next year and a half. We've been in therapy to get over what has happened. We never had any problems in our relationship, but now there is this. We love each other so much. We feel robbed of normalcy. We are not sure if it's the medication, but nothing has happened like that since. We've moved on. We are in a great space. We are having a baby. The seizures aren't as often. We have the baby. We are so in love with our baby, with one another. With life. Our daughter is 4 days old. My husband is acting odd. Just off. His smiles don't seem like his own. He's being very protective of me and our daughter. He doesn't want our dog to come near us. He wants to do things as a family. He wants to drink from my cup. He wants us to drink from the same cup at the same time. He keeps calling me perfect. He keeps saying we're perfect. He keeps saying things have to be perfect. He is not himself at all. I call his parents. He doesn't want his dad near the baby? He's like this for nearly 48 hours. Thankfully, his family stays with me during this time. He's not violent or mean. I still feel unsafe. He's behaving really oddly. He finally comes to. He sobs uncontrollably. He says he saw demons in the corners of our home. He thought the dog was a demon? Fast forward to now. My husband is obsessing over aliens. Before I leave for work, he looks me dead in the eyes and says, "We must be vigilant. The government is planning an attack." He's been watching alien videos non-stop. I feel uneasy, but I'm not sure if I'm just anxious. I tell him, but he thinks I'm being judgmental and mean. That I'm calling him crazy. I don't know where to go from here or what to do. I think he needs a psychiatrist. What is happening with my husband? Is it cruel to end a relationship because of this? I married for sickness or health, but this just seems like too much. Too long did not read. Husband is having mental episodes. Is it cruel to give up? Oh, how awful. Your husband is displaying signs of a psychotic break. He desperately needs a full medical and psychiatric workup to determine if this is from a physical or mental condition, or both. Reddit is not qualified for this one. He needs a psych eval and you need to build your support network. Please don't remove. I tried very hard to abide by the rules. I really need some advice. I have nowhere to turn as I am not ready to open up to friends. I have no family. You have to open up to friends, I think. This is too much to shoulder for one person. Your husband also needs immediate psychiatric care, ideally tomorrow. He absolutely needs to see a psychiatrist or at least an MD for this. I, M35. Regret leaving my wife, F29, at the airport. My wife got a new job where she started making several times what she was making before. I was incredibly happy for her since this was her first time making six figures. I've been making six figures for several years now and have funded most of our lifestyle. She had a history of putting me down, but as soon as she started making more money, it amplified considerably. She'd criticize everything I would do and nothing I did seemed to be right in her eyes. As an example, we'd go on several trips a year, at least one international and a few domestic, which I've always fully paid for. Although we travel more than most people, she said that she wasn't satisfied because I never flew her first class. Although we stay in nice hotels, clean and safe 4+ star hotels, she said they were never Instagram worthy. She'd often compare our life to influencers and I'd have to remind her that what she sees on social media is not real. We went on a vacation along with her parents and sister. On the last day, we visited a few sites and we began the several-hour trip to the airport. Everyone slept while I drove the family around. We flew back home and as soon as we deplaned, she started yelling at me on the concourse. She said so-and-so's husband is doing X for their wife, and demanded to know why I'm not doing the same for her. She kept yelling at me as we made our way through the terminal. It was all just one big blur. As soon as we got landside, I suggested I get the car from the parking garage while she grabs the checked-in luggage. I see her waiting by the door and I pulled up as far as I could before I got to the handicap loading zone. She was yelling at me to move closer and it didn't matter because it was late at night. Although no one was around, it still doesn't sit with me right to park in a handicap loading zone. She was mad and came up to the car and started yanking on the door handles. She dropped something in the car and went back for the luggage that was about 30 feet away. I was getting out to load the bags into the trunk. She yelled something at me and something in me snapped. I told her I was not going to put up with this anymore and told her to call an Uber home as I drove off. As I was leaving the airport, I had a change of heart and decided to turn around and pick her up. I came back to the terminal and she wasn't there anymore. I checked Find My and it looked like she was moving along with the AirTags in our luggage, so I assumed she must have gotten an Uber home. I come home and see a taxi in front of our home. It turned out she left her purse and phone in the car, while she went to go back for the luggage. She said it was some miracle from God that she found a taxi driver willing to drive her home without her wallet or phone, and that it was a sign for her to leave me. She moved out 2 weeks later and ultimately filed for divorce. I still think about that night. I question myself if things would have been different if I just kept my cool. I've lost my partner, but I'm in a state of peace that I haven't been in a long time. How do I stop reliving that moment? I've since taken several trips through that airport and relived that incident every time. I've taken several flights since the incident, and every time I pass by the area where this happened, the bottlenecked exit out of airside, I'm reminded of what happened. Sorry for the confusion. Too long did not read. I snapped and left my wife at the airport. It was the straw that made her leave and file for divorce. Edit. It's sad that people seem to think this is fake. I'm trying to be as detailed as possible without doxing myself. Why did I put up with it so long? We built a life together. We had our home, our friends, our dog, and it felt like it was time to start a family. When things were bad, they were terrible, but on the good days, they were amazing. We're both South Asian, and divorce has a terrible stigma in our culture. I made a commitment to this person and I planned on sticking with it. I'm not innocent. I have a terrible time communicating when someone is yelling at me. I walk away from the situation rather than fighting, especially in public. This in turn upsets her because she feels like she's not being heard, which makes her even more upset. Edit 2. Although we're culturally the same, American-born South Asians, we had very different upbringings. My parents were first-generation immigrants who came to this country with nothing. Even though I didn't have brand name, design or anything growing up, I was in a very loving home. We had been going to couples counseling, and through that I learned about her abandonment issues. She grew up in a dysfunctional household. When she was a teenager, her dad moved to another state and was left to fend for herself from her narcissistic mother. Once we got married, her parents began living in the same household again to keep up appearances, but they live in separate bedrooms and go through bouts of not speaking to each other or delivering messages through their kids. I see a lot of parallels between us and her parents. Her mother would put down her father even in front of me. I can only imagine what's being said behind closed doors. This sounds toxic AF. Yikes. Is all I can say. Probably not the best move to leave her there, but I honestly don't blame you. I would have snapped ages ago if I was dealing with that on the regular. You were pushed to your limit and finally stood up for yourself. Although not the healthiest of approaches, the message behind it is still standing up to a bully. That's what she's been to you. If she sees zero flaws for her historic behavior and sees this as a sign for divorce, good riddance. You can't change people like that. They will always be in the right in their own mind. Best to start preparing for the aftermath and talk to a lawyer. She sounds horrible, insecure and vain. The peace you feel sounds very welcomed and you will be much happier now. Let her go. You are better off. She seems like an angry, unhinged person. Count your losses. Your relationship was over way before that night anyway. The event you described was just the catalyst for an already impending breakup. Boyfriend, 24M, was the best man for his cousin's wedding, 26M, and disrespected me. Hello everyone, waving hand, medium light skin tone. So my boyfriend was the best man for his cousin's wedding. Originally, they had a bachelor party set up to go to Myrtle Beach, SC. I thought this was a wonderful idea. My boyfriend made sure to stress to me that they weren't going to the strip club. I felt pretty relieved by that. The trip never happened because of scheduling for his cousin and his friends. Moving forward to the day before the wedding, my boyfriend, the best man, planned a last-minute bachelor trip for his cousin and the friends that consisted of an Airbnb, go-karts, and the strip club. I was furious but respected the decision because it's such a traditional thing to do. It wouldn't be that bad, right? Wrong. So we get to the wedding day, and my boyfriend won't even look me in the eye. Something felt off. He cried during the ceremony, which I expected, and for his whole best man speech. That is when I knew something was wrong. Don't get me wrong. Nothing is wrong with being emotional, but every little second just seemed odd. Come to find out, my boyfriend asked to talk to me after the wedding. I agreed and he told me this. He said they went to the strip club and one of the strippers recognized him because he had another Airbnb reserved for later that month for us for an event that we wanted to attend. I thought this was so strange how she recognized him. I don't believe that at all. I get your profile picture on Airbnb shows who you are, but to recognize someone in the strip club is wild to me." Then, my boyfriend said that he was interested in her lifestyle. He then proceeded to tell me he wanted to know what the fast life was about. What does that even mean? After that, my boyfriend and all the guys went to Waffle House and the woman that is a stripper texted him asking what they were doing next. I thought this was odd too because why would an Airbnb host go out of their way to text someone? So, I guess they are all talking at the Waffle House at this point and the woman asks my boyfriend if she wants to come with him. He says yes. He gets in the car with her and she is already asking for sex. He tells me he says no but still engages in conversation with her. She takes him to her apartment where she tries to have sex with him again. He apparently says no and she gets mad. He claims he was there for no more than 10–15 minutes before the guys came and picked him up. After all of this, they apparently drove back home to prepare for the wedding? All in all, this was a huge boundary crossed for me. It does not add up and my boyfriend will not answer my questions without getting defensive. He said he just wants us to get back to normal. How can I? You agreed and went to a stranger's house. You could have gotten hurt or killed but you wanted to know what the fast life was like. Yay, right. We have been together for 3 years and never had an issue until this situation. Dump the liar. Trust is gone. You are getting trickle truth and his story is holier than Swiss cheese. There are a lot of things which don't add up. Have you questioned the other guys about what happened? They had sex. Dump him. You know he cheated. We know he cheated. Cut your losses now because this will happen again if you forgive and move on. Girl, if you believe his story, I got oceanfront property to sell you in Idaho. My boyfriend, 27M, wants me, 27F, to wait 7 years to become engaged. Should I trust him? I do not know what to think about my situation. I, 27F, started dating my boyfriend, 27M, 2 years ago and we agreed at the beginning that we were both looking for 2 years of dating followed by 1 year of living together after that, to total 3 years before getting engaged. We are at the 2-year mark and discussed moving in together. He even spoke about it publicly to his friends and family when at gatherings. After we went on our first apartment tour, he disclosed that he was not ready to move in together because he thought that meant marriage was expected. I didn't know how to take this but reassured him that moving in together meant figuring out if we are compatible before deciding if we want to get married. He now is on board with moving in together again but I am hesitant. We spoke about marriage and he informed me that he is not under any circumstances willing to be engaged before the age of 32, 5 years from now, 7 years total dating. We have spoken about this before but I genuinely thought he was either joking. He has a habit of joking about these things, or had some desire to compromise. His reasonings are twofold. 1. He wants to figure out if he wants kids too. He wants to be more established in his career and self to know if his core beliefs change. My heart is breaking because I have been abundantly clear with him on what I want, him. And I am terrified that I am being set up here. I trust him, but at the end of the day, 7 years seems extreme to me. We have discussed at length how women and men have different timelines, but beyond that, I don't want to be with someone who doesn't want me as much. Please give me any advice on the situation. I am definitely open to couples therapy if that could help too. My main question is, do I trust him, is it worth the wait? ETA. We both are the product of divorced parents. He comes from an especially bad situation where his father flipped a switch, became abusive, left when he was a child, and has caused intense damage to his family since then. I understand his hesitancy in making the most important decision of your life, his words. But I have difficulty convincing myself it takes 7 years to decide that. ETA. Someone asked me to add this. When discussing moving in together, he said the only reason he would ever consider it is to avoid losing me, not because he wants to. He lives with his mom now. He pays for most of our dates since I have rent and he doesn't, and can't rationalize paying rent when he has a rent-free option. He thought I was insane for suggesting an income-based rent payment %, even though he makes more than double what I do in income. I make a good salary and do not need to rely on him, but I feel like if the roles were reversed I would be happy to pay my fair share while investing in our future. How can someone know exactly the age of when they want to get married? It almost feels like he's just stalling as long as possible. His reasonings are valid for sure and he should work on figuring them out, but you are right with feeling concerned. It's weird, his requirements are oddly specific and yet he has no clue if he wants kids at age 27? Does he care what actually you want to? He doesn't want to marry you. He wants you to wait 5 more years before you ask him again. He doesn't even want to move in with you. Don't waste your time on an empty promise. Remember, you already had an agreed upon timeline and he doesn't want to respect that agreement either. You can find someone who is on the same page as you instead of waiting 5 more years to be told some bullshit again. We agreed at the beginning that we were both looking for 2 years of dating followed by 1 year of living together after that, to total 3 years before getting engaged. And then, we spoke about marriage and he informed me that he is not under any circumstances willing to be engaged before the age of 32, 5 years from now, 7 years total dating. What's changed? Unfortunately, the only thing that's changed is that he spent 2 years in this relationship. Now that it's time to move things along as originally planned, he's hesitant. If he thought you were his forever person, he wouldn't be trying to fob you off with another 5 years of limbo. Don't let this jerk waste any more of your time. I'm really sorry to be so blunt. But you deserve someone to be direct with you. Unfortunately, no. If I had to guess, I'd say that he knows he doesn't want what you want and he's hoping if he drags things out long enough, you'll slip into a sunk cost fallacy where you will stay in the relationship because by that point you've already been there for 7 years. Or, maybe he just figures by then you will change your mind to match him. Or maybe it's actually you that he doesn't want to marry and have kids with. If you know that you want marriage and kids, then this is not the guy for you.